My name is Carolyn Wilson, and I am the coordinator for the Groton Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention. Started in 1999, GASP has been around for 20 years. I wanted to spend some time talking to the members to find out what their thoughts were on what we've done so far and where we're going. You joined as a youth peer advocate serving the town of Groton, and you've done a really great job. You've helped me do all sorts of things with GASP, including put up poster campaigns and help me with events and all sorts of things. What has been some of your favorite memories as we look back over the past 3 years with GASP? What was the most fun for you?
The most fun probably would have to be when we came to fish and put the posters up, and then we got to pick where we wanted them, and then the magnets that you had me do after school. I think youth should be involved so then they understand the facts are not fake, like I said before, and then they'll be more educated than what schools educate us already. I think parents should get involved so then they could have like an idea how to bring up the conversation about drugs to their kids. Yes, I think we should look at like suicide or gambling, because gambling is a big thing because we have the 2 big casinos in our area, but then suicide is also a big thing because teens and middle schoolers, they get like a whole bunch of stress put on them, and then they just think the best way out of it is to commit suicide.
Well, let's see, I have to do a little math. If you want years, it's, as you say, it was 2004 when I began. And we did our first survey on paper, on forms supplied by the state, which they then ran out of. So then we had to put it online on a computer. So what is that, 16 years? Well, let's see. I retired from Pfizer as a statistician, and I was recruited by Sam Crowley, who just recently passed away, who was the public health director. Then when the state was apparently not able to follow up on their survey, which they had done in Groton around 2000, he asked me if I would do the survey again. And I said yes, so I'm still here. We've seen, in national and state figures, the use of alcohol and other things gradually decline. What's taken its place, of course, has been marijuana, and even that now is in decline. So, well, young people are risk takers. That's what they do, and mostly they can take a risk, try something out, and then not follow up with serious problems later on. But a significant number of people do suffer consequences from their sort of what I will call their youthful indiscretions. GASP has helped to focus the community on that. It's a lot easier to prevent something than it is to treat it if you've already gotten into trouble with it. In fact, the number of opioid deaths is just staggering. I mean, nationwide. And I think that all the talk of legalizing and medicalizing marijuana without actually proper studies has convinced young people that maybe it's not so bad for me after all. It's the job of the prevention community to convince them of what are the facts, which is that marijuana can be a dangerous drug, can be addictive, and can have far-reaching consequences. The concept of gateway drugs is not well accepted by a lot of people. But we do know that people who get into trouble with alcohol or opioids or whatever tend to have done other things when they were younger. it's a wonderful, dedicated group of people. The kids that come to our meetings and get involved, and I think it's working with the people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've seen a steady decline in the use of alcohol among young people, and also, and I will say especially, the use of cigarettes has, down to low single digits now. There seems to be a group of risk takers, and then most of the kids don't use anything. The perception of harm from from alcohol has increased, and the perception of harm from marijuana has seen a steady decrease, especially among the older kids. Preparing for the possibility that recreational use of marijuana will be approved at some point, as it has been in some of the surrounding states, will put more pressure on the prevention community. So the pathways that you will follow in life are established in some ways very early, in infancy and young childhood. And we tend to think of those as the formative years. But there's been a lot more work being done now on the adolescent and early 20s years in terms of making the connections that sort of establish your patterns of behavior in full adulthood. Neurological research being done on this, and connections that are being made in the brain that are difficult, if not impossible, to change. And these occur among the very age groups that we're studying. And so I think that's the time to influence the kids and let them know, what the biology really is telling us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you can't talk about prevention without talking about the importance of parents. What's their role in prevention?
Well, parents are the key. I've talked to parents and who are skeptical that their kids ever listen to them. And I understand that as a parent. I get that. But when we look at changes in use and what coordinates with that, what correlates, it's usually something to do with the child's perception of the parent's influence. Every few years, a new generation of kids arrives at school, and they have the same risks that the previous generations did.
I was originally asked to take our health teacher's position when he left for another job, and when I found out what GASP was all about, I was excited to join. So I was very excited and pleased to be asked. I can't even begin to count the ways that the community has benefited. So we have targeted students, families, adults, community agencies, shops, and local establishments. There have been so many, but I have to say early on we did a family dinner night, and we had families come in and we provided dinner, and we just talked about how it was important to talk with your children and try to make family time really a priority. Again, it all comes back to starting early and getting those values and those ideas of what healthy mind and a healthy body is all about. And I just feel like the sooner you can get to students and to kids and families, the better off everybody is in the long run. Well, with the whole legalization of marijuana in the area, it's really an upper battle, because I feel like we address one area like smoking cessation, and then it moves on to alcohol and drug abuse and opioids, and I feel like there's always just a challenge in society. Well, even though they may not agree, kids really do look up to their parents, and they really do see what happens, and they model what they do, and they say actions speak louder than words. So for adults and parents to be healthy and to make good decisions really is important to those kids. I think just growing our just who we can reach out to and who we can touch. Just getting word out. I feel like that's been one of our biggest things is just having people know what GASP is. 10 years ago, I'm not sure a lot of people would know what GASP is, but we've really done a nice job through social media, through our many events that we sponsor. It's really, that's the bottom line, is just getting word out, what we're all about, what our focus is, and prevention, always the key.
How long have you been involved with GASP?
I think next month is 2 years. I think.
Time has really flown by. I'm so glad you've gotten involved.
I think prevention, first and foremost, education, prevention, giving information to those of us who are in recovery. I have 17 years in recovery, so whether it's professionally or personally or as a parent, it just keeps me informed and gives me really good statistics and research, which I love. I know when I drop my son off at Cutler, I see the signs. When I'm at the different libraries, I see the brochures. Information is definitely available, which I think is important. It's readily available. I think that it's more on the forefront of the average person's mind, addictions and the opioid epidemic. So being in a community where prevention is important to me. I think helping the average citizen in Groton to realize it's not just a problem somewhere in another town, another state, but it's here, it's everywhere, and it's going to help all the citizens in Groton to know that prevention is important and that there are tools available to us as citizens. Ooh, I think it empowers them to know that there's options besides using and falling into that trap, and that there's power in numbers. And education, I think that's important with prevention, to know it's not just someone somewhere, some other geographic area or socioeconomic group, that it's here, it's in their town, and I think the better prepared they are, the better they can prevent going down the wrong road. And that, you know, I graduated second in my class. I did well in school. It was the transition between high school and adulthood that didn't go well. So usually the friends want to know, well, how can I keep my kid on track? And I think what we learned in GASP, the statistics, the facts that the prevention is key, and just what you say to us so often is that statistically speaking, the kids are listening to their parents. So I would like to continue to see us try to stay current, because that's important. I know what I've learned has, specifically with the vaping, has led to really good conversations with both my soon-to-be high schooler and my third grader, and you'd be surprised how much that stuff comes up as young as third grade. And what I've learned and been able to show them has avoided some things.
To speak a little bit about my involvement with GASP, I began my involvement with GASP about 10 years ago as a volunteer. I started volunteering with Michelle Hamilton, and we worked together on family nights, and that's how I first learned about what was going on in prevention and in public health. Lucky for me, Michelle at the time had a lot of grant funding, and I was able to work more closely with her and actually be her assistant. Before working with GASP as a volunteer, I didn't really know a lot about the prevention world, and it was very eye-opening to see what was going on and how effective this group had been at addressing local prevention concerns. GASP has continually led the conversation about prevention in a time where it's very easy to start talking about other things. Sometimes we become focused on what happens if we don't prevent things. How do we stop problems once they've already started? And while that's certainly important that people have access to treatment if they need it, whether it be a teenager or an adult, certainly everybody seems to say prevention is key. And I think that we have kept that conversation going in Groton, and we have raised a lot of awareness about why it's important. And we've done it in a way where we take local conditions into consideration and make sure that we're using our data to make the changes that need to happen. We select strategies that are appropriate for what's going on in Groton. And prevention is important. It's sometimes not the flashiest topic. Sometimes it doesn't get the attention it deserves. But everyone always says it's the most important thing. My favorite memory, every time we have a successful event and people come up to me afterwards and say, thank you so much for the work that you do. It really matters. And let me tell you a personal story as to why. That always really resonates with me. And whenever a parent says, I didn't really think that I would ever have to talk about this, but thank you for giving me the tools that I need to do it. That's also really important. We know that this community really is grateful to what we're doing, and I hear it from elected officials, I hear it from people who work in different agencies, from teachers and school personnel to parents and kids.